You can't win your drafts in the first 2 rounds, but you can lose your drafts. And where you really can win your leagues is drafting those players at higher ADPs that will significantly outperform them, produce good value for the entire season, and ultimately lead you to the fantasy championships. Last year, Filip Forsberg, Michael Matheson were two notable league winners that if you draft them at ADP 100 plus, paid off huge value for you. This video, I'm going to go over 10 of my favorite league winners that I think can significantly outproduce their ADP, produce good value for the entire season, and end up as top 50 plus players. This is going to be a good video, guys, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Timo Meier is the first player for this list, and honestly, when we first started drafting, I did think he has the upside to be the Filip Forsberg of last season. In competitive drafts, he's going a little bit earlier than he should be on his ADP, but still in non-competitive leagues, and based on what the current mock drafts are telling us, Meier's current ADP on Yahoo is ADP 69. Now, with Meier last season, he had a huge down season. He had a really slow start to the year, and so did the entire New Jersey Devils team. But with Timo Meier, in the last 35 games of his season is where we really saw the 2022-2021 Timo Meier when he was on the San Jose Sharks, putting up over 300 shots, 40 goals, and over 150 hits. The last 35 games of the season for Meier, 19 goals, 15 assists, 109 shots, and 67 hits. That pace, if we extrapolate those last 35 games, 45 goals, 80 points, 255 shots, 157 hits. That is enough to be the Filip Forsberg of last season. He has the upside right now to be a top 25 player in fantasy if he can remain healthy and if we can see the offensive firepower that this New Jersey Devils team is fully capable of. Now, he's just 1 year removed from a 40-goal season, 327 shots, and 154 hits. That was enough to give him basically top 10 in most fantasy leagues. I remember considering keeping him in one of my leagues. I didn't end up doing it because I had Brady Tkachuk, but still, Meier possesses massive upside, especially with his phenomenal shot and hit mix. He can easily be the biggest steal this draft right now, and at ADP 69, we do think he has the upside to finish as a top 30 player in fantasy. When Toffoli left the team last year, this kind of paved the way for Meier to now move back into a top line, top power play role. Hoping Jack Hughes can stay healthy this season. We know right now there's currently news that Luke Hughes is going to begin the season injured. The same thing that we saw with the Devils team last year when they literally could not stay healthy. If I remember correctly, Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, and Dougie Hamilton, three huge offensive pieces on that team, were injured at one point last season. And that pretty much led to the entire Devils team having a down year, and all these players are currently on sale. So for Meier right now, he grades out as a top 30 player for us. 75 games played, 33 goals, 270 shots, and 131 hits. Extremely good numbers, in line with what we were projecting for Owen Tippett, except Tippett's actually going a little bit earlier in drafts than Timo Meier right now. So this is a very good value pick. I think he can pay off huge value for you, and the left wing, right wing eligibility gives you more flexibility in your lineups. I want to be drafting Timo Meier in all my leagues. I would be taking him as early as round 4 right now. I've been getting some questions about keepers and Timo Meier. It's very contingent on how many keepers you currently have on your team and basically your draft capital. But if you're able to not keep him and then draft him early, round 1, round 2, depending on how many keepers you have, he's going to pay off huge value for you this season. So I love Timo Meier. I think he has the upside to be a league winner and the Filip Forsberg of last season. I still don't really understand why Mika Zibanejad is falling so much in drafts right now. He's honestly one of the biggest ADP followers within the top 100. He was going around 2 to 3 last season. If I remember correctly, I went back and looked at one of my drafts last year. He went 20th overall. And right now he's going ADP 73, about round 6 to 7. Now I get the center position is extremely full. And typically if you don't get one of the big 4 of McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews, and Draisaitl in the first round, you're likely going to be grabbing some elite wingers, and that just opens the door for you to be grabbing Zibanejad in round 6 and 7 with the opportunity to be a top 30 player this season. He grades out as a top 30 player for us right now, and right now over the last 2 seasons for Zibanejad, he ranks 22nd in points, 40th in goals, 40th in shots, and 12th in power play points, yet he's going ADP 73 in drafts. He's going around round 6 and 7 with the upside to easily pay off round 2 and round 3 value. Now, his goal scoring is highly contingent on who gets the offensive touches on the top power play. we've seen pretty much sporadic goal scoring from Zibanejad, where he'll score 35, then go back to under 30, then back to over 30. And you see Chris Kreider's goal scoring or Artemi Panarin like last year, their goal scoring really starts to go up as Zibanejad's goes down. But still, this top power play unit is extremely good. The third most efficient power play over the last 2 seasons. They have the exact same 5 players that will be on that top power play this season. So there's really no indication on this power play struggling at all. With Zibanejad, he's, again, one of the best power play point producers in the entire league and one of the best point producers in the entire league. So right now, we project him for 81 games played, 82 points, including 32 goals, 33 points in the power play, over 200 shots, over 50 hits, and just under 47 blocks. Now, I know in face-off win leagues, you typically like to draft players that have winger eligibility to take face-offs. Zibanejad's kind of in and out of the face-off dot quite a bit, and he won't get you those 800 face-off wins like you're looking for in the centers. So he's a little bit less valued in those leagues, but still the category coverage is very strong. The point totals are very strong. He had his worst season since 2018 last year, and that was 72 points and 26 goals. His worst season since 2018. So there's a lot to like from Zibanejad here. He's definitely a guy I'm completely fine with you drafting as your 1C in drafts, especially if you don't get one of the big 4. But even if you do get one of the big 4, we know Draisaitl does have that left wing eligibility as well. So if you grab Draisaitl and then in the 6th round you go Mika Zibanejad, that's a phenomenal way to be starting off your drafts. He's a very, very safe pick at ADP 73. He should be good for about 19 plus minutes per night. He plays almost every game. He's a very, very safe choice and a guy I want to be rostering with the upside, again, to be a league winner. The more I look into Matt Boldy, the more I like him as a league winner this season. Now, in particular, the biggest thing is, and I've gotten some concern about this, is his current deployment going into this season. So right now, if you go look on Daily Faceoff, we have no indication on what the lines are going to be going into training camp. But right now on Daily Faceoff, they have Matt Zuccarello skating on the top line with Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy skating on the second line. But I went back, did some digging, and over the last 30 games of the season, when this Minnesota Wild team went absolutely off, Boldy played 450 of his last 600 minutes of the season with Kirill Kaprizov. Now, this is a mix of both 5-on-5 and power play, but Kirill Kaprizov, in my opinion, has the upside to finish as a top 5 player, well over a point per game, and I do think he's going to be a Hart candidate this season. And I want to be drafting his line mate, Matt Boldy, who has yet to surpass the 70-point mark, but he does have the upside to be a 40-40 player this season. So in those last 30 games, as I mentioned, with Boldy playing alongside Kirill Kaprizov, had some of the best numbers as a duo that I've seen in a long time. A 68% Corsi for percentage, 44 goals and just 22 against, and a 77% high danger chances for percentage. As a duo, they were extremely dominant, one of the most dominant duos in the league over those last 30 games. Now, as I mentioned, I think Boldy has a 40-40 upside this season, and I've been comparing him a lot to Wyatt Johnston. Who would you rather take? For me right now, it's definitely going to be Matt Boldy because he's going at a 30 ADP discount, going round 6 and 7, whereas Wyatt Johnston's currently going the 4th and 5th round. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Johnston this season, but his ADP is a little bit too rich for me. So 2 seasons ago, Boldy broke out, 31 goals, 63 points, adding 26 points in the power play and 255 shots. Followed that up last year with 29 goals, 69 points, 25 points in the power play, and 227 shots in 6 less games. So yes, the shot total was a little bit less, but still extremely exciting to see from Boldy. His pace last year, 32 goals, 75 points in an 82-game pace, and you're getting him right now at ADP 74. So he struggled considerably in the first half. He scored 11 goals and 20 points in his first 28 games, while adding just 74 shots, averaging under 18 minutes per night. He was actually 170th in the league in points over this time, but he shined in the second half. 18 goals, 48 points, 153 shots, averaging 20 minutes average time on ice over his last 47 games, ranking him over that time 24th for points and 19th for shots. His current pace over the last 47 games of the season, 31 goals, 84 points, 267 shots. I think personally he's going to be skating with Kirill Kaprizov for the entirety of this season, and that is massive upside for a guy that should be a Hart candidate in Kirill Kaprizov, skating beside Matt Boldy. A lot to like from the season. We're projecting to be just over or just under a point per game at 73 points, 26 power play points, 250 shots, 45 hits, 30 blocks, ADP 74 with the upside to easily be a 40-40 player with over 250 shots. You really can't be passing that up at his current ADP. I think he definitely has the upside to be a league winner this season. Dual position eligibility at left and right wing, so you have some flexibility in your lineup. A lot to like from Boldy this season. It's going to be extremely exciting. A 6'2 winger with great puck control, and he's a sniper by trait. So a lot to like from Boldy this season. A guy I want to be drafted on all of my teams right now. If you can go Mika Zibanejad or Boldy in round 6, and then one of the other players in round 7, that's a very, very good setup for the rest of your draft. I love Boldy this season. I think he's going to be a huge breakout candidate, and he's going to be my guy this year. I know we have a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans that do watch our videos, and we have a lot of them in the Discord, and I just asked the audience, like, what did you see from Slafkovsky last season when he was moving to a top line role? The biggest thing I got in response was the confidence, and that's what they gave him last year. Marty St. Louis is a phenomenal coach. He basically took the reins off of Slafkovsky, moving him up to a top line power play 1 role. He immediately found chemistry with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield, and the trio was extremely good last season. So through his first 41 games, he was pretty much a waiver wire player. He had just 21 points, 71 shots, but after those first 41 games, he went on a tear, putting up 30 points in his last 33 games, including 88 shots and averaging close to 20 minutes per night. Now, on top of the point total, and it's not all about points in fantasy, we know a lot of you guys play in category leagues, and the biggest thing with Slafkovsky is he's actually one of the best blocking forwards in the league. So he added 71 blocks last season and 152 hits. We can only see these numbers continue to inflate going into this year as he gets a little bit older. He's now built almost half a season of chemistry with his top 2 line mates. And last year, Slafkovsky in the second half ranked top 50 in points, top 50 in hits, and top 20 in blocks. These are extremely promising numbers to see from a guy, a former first overall pick, where hopefully Montreal can finally draft a guy that goes, top 5 overall and produces great value for the team. Now, the chemistry there is huge for Slafkovsky, and that's what we're going to expect going into this season. He's currently ADP 114, and just the hits, blocks, and shots alone, the category coverage from Slafkovsky puts him in the same territory as we saw with Joel Eriksson Ek and Vincent Trocheck of last season. So we project him this year for 52 points. Honestly, a conservative point total right now for him. He can significantly surpass this. 15 power play points, 163 shots, 162 blocks, and 162 hits, and 79 blocks. Very good category coverage. Pretty much hits every single category top to bottom at an above average level. If we see this shot total increase from last season, it's only going to produce better for his offensive goal totals. And honestly, last year, Cole Caufield had a little bit of a down season, and he's going to be included in this video because I do think he's a league winner. If they can start finding that scoring touch, that this team's going to be getting a little bit older. That is Patrik Laine, who, if healthy, is close to a point per game, which again should only help that top power play unit, which will ultimately help Slafkovsky. He's in line for a big season this year in a line 1 power play 1 role. I can't see his role changing going into this season. He's entering his 3rd full NHL season and should be an absolute beast this year. There's a lot to like from Slafkovsky. You're getting him at a pretty cheap value right now at ADP 114. He grades out as a top 75 player for us going into the season because of that strong category coverage. So a guy I definitely want to be drafting with the upside to be a league winner this year. I just want to take a minute to let you know that the Fantasy Puck Patreon leagues are officially open for this season. This is our 2nd annual season. We had over 84 managers competing last year, and we're hoping to reach over 100 this year. Make sure you secure your spot. The links will be in the description below. If you have any questions, just make sure you leave a comment on this video or join our Discord and send me a message at FPMike. I'll be sure to answer as soon as I can. We have drafts beginning as early as mid-September. Everything will be live streamed, so you're going to be able to watch your drafts back again. You'll be able to compete and talk with other active managers within the Discord. It's super exciting. Again, any questions, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to answer. Now, no more of me. Let's just go back into the video. Habs fans, I know you're excited. We have 2 league winners on this list from your team, but there is a lot to like from Cole Caufield going into the season. Now, Cole Caufield, or if you want to call him Goal Caufield, he just didn't really score as much as we would have hoped last season, but that's completely fine with me because you're getting him at a significant ADP discount right now. And the most promising factor for me, you guessed it, is his great shot rate. So his 314 shots last season ranked him 7th in the NHL, and of those players with over 300 300 shots. He is the only one under 37 goals, scoring 28 last season. So if we use his career and we just extrapolate his career shooting percentage of 11.7%, that grades out to 37 goals last season, boosting his point total to 74 and likely making him a top 30 to 40 player in most leagues. Now, Caufield's a staple on this Montreal offense. He skates line 1, he skates power play 1. You know that Marty St. Louis likes him a lot. Everyone can recall that video of him showing how to do the fake slap shot on the power play, walk out and score, and he replicated that in the game. So you know that St. Louis likes him a lot. The coaching does play a big factor in his deployment, and there's really no reason for him not to be skating top line and top power play unit. Now, his minutes last year jumped quite a bit to 1925, and I do think he should begin to creep over that 20-minute per night mark, with them being a little bit more competitive this season. I think he's a legitimate candidate to score 40 goals this season. I'm going to be betting a future on it, bearing injury, and he's falling to the 7th and 8th round right now, and I do think he has the upside to finish as a top 40 player in fantasy. So, our projections this season: 74 games played, 65 points, including 35 goals, 294 shots, which is about 20 less than what we saw last season. We know the hits and blocks aren't there, but just the offensive upside alone in Cole Caufield makes him an extremely exciting player for fantasy this season. You can grab him round 7, round 8, contingent on who you're drafting with. If you're with Canadiens fans, I'm sure you might be going a little bit earlier, but still very, very good value. He seems to still be going underrated when doing our competitive mock drafts recently. So a guy I definitely want to be drafted on my roster. I'm completely fine if you want to even take the stack of Caufield in round 7 and then go Slafkovsky in round 9 to get that exposure to the top line and top power play unit. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Patrik Laine. We know he's a huge question mark going into the season. We don't know what his deployment's going to be, but I still think Cole Caufield's still going to be the guy getting those offensive touches. His shot rate, there really is no reason for it to decline. So a lot to like from Caufield this season. I'm really interested to see what our Montreal Canadiens fans do say about him going into the season, but a lot to like from him here. And I'm going to be taking him at this massive ADP discount we're getting him at. I think Vilardi might be the only one that is outside the ADP 100 right now out of the forwards that are going to be on this list, but I am all over Vilardi this season. So a lot of people really like Ehlers going into this season. We don't really know what's going to end up happening if he gets traded or not, but regardless, Vilardi last season was a staple on the top line and the top power play unit. I went back to look at playoffs just to confirm to see what his deployment was, and it was the exact same thing. Top line, top power play unit. And it's really rare to find forwards, especially with Vilardi's upside, that are going after ADP 130 that has deployment to be top line, top power play unit. Now, I know health is the main concern for Vilardi here, and maybe that's why he's being discounted so much in drafts right now, but I draft guys for upside, and going at ADP 174, it's relatively no risk for you. If he gets hurt, you toss him on IR. If he struggles early, you can drop him because you only invested a 16th round pick in drafting him, and that just really makes it low risk. So last season, 22 goals, 36 points, 117 shots in just 47 games. That 82 game pace extrapolates to 38 goals, 63 points, and over 200 shots. And he's going at the end of drafts right now. It's really rare to find guys with this much upside in Vilardi. And for this season, we project him for 34 goals, 23 assists, 17 points in the power play, just under 200 shots. Not very much hits and blocks, but still, the upside to draft a guy right at the end of your draft with potential 40 goal upside is extremely nice for me. I'm going to be drafting Vilardi in a lot of my leagues. He's currently going drafted in under 50% of leagues right now. I anticipate his roster percentage to skyrocket early in the season as people start to see his deployment or even see our videos. So a lot to like from Vilardi here, going extremely late in drafts. Most of the guys I mentioned so far in the video are going pretty much under ADP 100, but Vilardi is a guy you can grab again at the end of your drafts, around 16. You don't have to invest a lot of draft capital in him, with huge upside this season. I'm going to be drafting Vilardi on all of my teams. This is now going to give him way more exposure throughout our videos, but still, in our drafts right now, he's going undrafted, and I want to be taking him on almost all of my teams. Listen, I was on Jake Sanderson big time last year, a guy that was going pretty much at the end of drafts that had the upside to skate power play 1. We knew he was going to be in a much better role last season, but this season looks even better for Jake Sanderson. They got rid of Jacob Chychrun. He was traded over to Washington, and now Sanderson should easily jump into that top pair power play 1 role, exactly like we saw last season. So some people have been talking about, and there's been news that has recently been announced about Thomas Chabot. He was dealing with a wrist injury last season, and he pretty much missed a lot of time because of that wrist injury. But if you go look at the games he's missed last season, aside from that wrist injury, he went on the LTIR for a lower body injury. And then after that lower body injury, which happened about in December, he continued to be day-to-day and miss time for a lower body injury. So yes, Chabot's wrist is healthy going into this season, but he still dealt with a lower body injury that kept him out for a lot of time last season. So last year, Sanderson led all Senators in average time on ice and power play average time on ice. Even with Chabot healthy, I still think Jake Sanderson will still sustain this power play 1 role. So the biggest thing and why he didn't really pop off last season, and pretty much why any single Ottawa center last season didn't really pop off aside from Brady Tkachuk, is this power play went from 8th best in 2022 to 25th best in 2023. And now you're getting all these players at massive discounts. Tim Stützle's honestly an honorable mention for this video, but I couldn't include him because his ADP is still a little bit too rich, and I think he's fair value. But with Sanderson, he's a great blocking defenseman. He has massive offensive upside, skating in a much better role this season. He can easily finish with 50 plus points this season, and about 40% of those points to be on the top power play unit. I like his shot and block number mix, 158 shots and 139 blocks last season. We're hoping he can begin to elevate these numbers as his average time on ice continues to scale up and the offensive touches continue to grow. So for this year with Sanderson, we project him for 50 points, including 12 goals, 22 points in the power play, 149 shots, 143 blocks. Very good numbers for a guy that's going ADP 134 right now. The biggest thing we're seeing in drafts is defensemen are going extremely early, and you're going to have to pivot in your drafts to either not grab a defenseman within the first 3 rounds or really reach on some of them. But Sanderson right now in those competitive drafts is going round 8, round 9, a perfect defenseman 2 or defenseman 3 for most teams. And we know the scarcity of this position will only elevate his value even more. So I like Sanderson this season. I like his opportunity going into this year with no Chychrun. We should see his minutes scale up well over 23-24 minutes per night, and that's what you want to be seeing from your defenseman. Sanderson's a great draft right now. ADP 134 is not too rich at all. We have him grading out as a top 113 player, and that's just bearing, a little bit more of a conservative projection. But with his upside this season, he could easily finish as a top 100 player, a top 10 to 12 defenseman, and you're getting him at ADP 134, a guy I want to be drafting on all my teams with the upside to be a league winner. So I just talked about how Sanderson gets better with the departure of Chychrun, and now I'm recommending Carlson, who may regress because of the acquisition of Chychrun, but I think this really has no impact on John Carlson. So even with Chychrun joining, I still expect Carlson to be that line 1, power play 1 defenseman that we've seen on the Capitals for the last, 6-7 years. Carlson last season was a guy that I was all over in drafts. He had a really big down year 2 years ago, and he was injured, and the injury, it was a puck to the face. So it wasn't a lower body injury that he was nagging with. It wasn't an upper body injury. It was literally just a puck to the face that kept him out for about 42 games. Now, he paid off solid value. If you drafted him last season, he led the NHL in average time on ice with 25 minutes and 53 seconds, just under 26 minutes per night. That's extremely good and only speaks to his floor much more. So with Carlson, again, massive value. He played all 82 games last year, 10 goals, 52 points, 21 points in the power play. We know he's a power play merchant over in Washington, 176 shots, and was just under his career high in blocks at 194. Now, he finished around defenseman 12 to 15 last season, contingent on your league. If you don't have blocks, he obviously finished a little bit lower, after being defenseman 28 to 30 off the board. And he's a perfect defenseman number 2 and number 3, given his security in his role. I do think he can sustain that top line, top power play role. There's really no reason for it. And Washington last season had the 18th most efficient power play, and we know that a lot of John Carlson's production does come on the power play, but even if this power play gets a little bit better or remains status quo, he should still be a lock for 50 to 60 points, and then his category coverage is well above league average for defensemen. He can close in on close to 200 shots and close in close to 200 blocks. Now, this block total is currently conservative. If you go look at John Carlson's historical blocks, it's actually fluctuated quite a bit in his career, but still, if he can sustain that block total that we saw last season at 194, he should pay off huge value for you right now. He's currently defenseman 30 off the board, and we have him ranked as our defenseman 11, currently ranked 64 in our projections. We have no adjustments made to him at all. This is strictly using his historical rates. We have him projected for 74 games played, 58 points, 22 of those points on the power play, 185 shots, and 139 blocks. Again, conservative block total numbers, and if he can sustain those numbers we saw from last season, he's going to be paying off huge value. I love him as a defenseman 2 or 3 in drafts. If you grab Yossi or Dahlin, someone I've been recommending quite a bit in round 2 or round 3, and go Carlson around 6 or round 7, because we know defensemen are flying off the board right now in competitive leagues. This is a perfect way to start your draft. This is a perfect way to grab a number 1 elite defenseman on the Washington Capitals. I'm all over John Carlson last season, and I'm going to be again this year. Defensemen are really difficult right now, guys. I find a lot of defensemen are very fairly valued in drafts, and they're going extremely early, so you're going to have to try and pick apart this value of defensemen that are going way later than they should be, and Carlson is a perfect example of this. I will admit, in my goalie rankings, I took a lot of heat for having Darcy Kuemper as a top 20 goalie going into the season, but there's really no reason for him not to be. So last year, he had the worst season of his entire career. The first season with a save percentage below 900 and the highest goals against average of his team at 331. Now, Kuemper is a career 914 save percentage and a career 261 goals against average. One down year, and on a brand new team, you can now draft him at a huge discount. He started just 30 games last season after starting 50 plus in 3 of his last 5 seasons. And he moves from the Washington Capitals, who was the 28th best defensive team in the NHL, to the LA Kings, who was the 6th best defensive team in the league. Now, the biggest thing, I went back and looked at the LA Kings in 2023. They had the 5th best save percentage at 912 and the 3rd best goals against average at 256. And this was with a 36-year-old Cam Talbot as their starter, and then a 31-year-old David Rittich, who has been a backup goalie for his entire career. Kuemper is currently the 20th goalie off the board right now at ADP 104. In competitive leagues, we're even seeing him fall past 120 and on. This is completely outrageous for a goalie who should be the number 1 guy on a top 10 to 12 team and a top 5 to 7 defensive team. Kuemper, I think, personally has league-winning upside. You guys know I like to go the zero goalie strategy, so Kuemper is completely fine for me as my 1G or my goalie number 1 on every fantasy team, especially in round 9 and 10. If you want to grab those elite forwards and defensemen from round 1 to 9 and then grab Kuemper in round 10, he's going to pay off huge value this season. We saw the start that Talbot and Rittich had last season, or Phoenix Copley. All 3 LA goalies last season were very, very good. They paid off huge value. I was on 2 goalies last season in Talbot and Copley. I think that they were very, very good value last season, and we're seeing the exact same thing from Darcy Kuemper. We project him for 32 wins this season, a 910 save percentage, and a 270 goals against average with 5 shutouts. ADP 104. He grades out as basically a top 10 goalie for us right now. There's a lot of upside to like from Kuemper on this LA Kings team, who focuses heavily on playing very strong defensively, and they're a very strong offensive team. There's no reason for them to be less competitive, even with the departure of Pierre-Luc Dubois. Yes, he's a very good forward, but still, in Dubois, he was a very lazy player. They have Deneau as their 2C. They have Kopitar as their 1C. They have Byfield getting older and should be a lot better this season. So there's a lot to like from this LA Kings team, and I want to be drafting their goalie on all of my teams right now. Speaking of amazing defensive teams, and not much has to be said about the Carolina Hurricanes. They were the number 1 defensive team last season, have been top 3 over the last 3 years. This is a massive benefit for their goaltenders. Yes, I know they lost 2 big defensemen in Brady Shea and Brett Pesce. They brought in Sean Walker and they brought in Shane Gostisbehere. Gostisbehere is not really a defensive-minded defenseman, but should still help out the back end as a solid top 4 defenseman. Now, in the second half of 2023, Kochetkov had the 5th best save percentage at 923 and the 3rd best goals against average at 204. He finished 2023 with a 23-13-3 record, a 911 save percentage, and a 233 goals against average with 4 shutouts and 40 starts. Now, you've heard me talk about Freddie Anderson in the past. If you watched the Sleepers video already, he's one of the league's most injured players. And since leaving Toronto over the last 2 seasons, he has just 50 starts in 164 games. Now, Freddie, right now, we have really no news of his health. I'm assuming he's going to start the season healthy given the lack of news right now. But when he gets injured, it's completely inevitable. Kochetkov becomes immediately a top 7 goalie in fantasy because of how good the team is defensively and offensively in front of him. He's currently going goalie 16 off the board and should definitely be a priority in all of your drafts. Now, if you draft Kochetkov, I'm completely fine if you want to draft Freddie Anderson. In one of our mock drafts, I was able to grab Freddie at pick 170. So both of these goalies are still going at a significant discount given how good their numbers should be on this team. Now, Kochetkov in points leagues doesn't grade out as amazing value just because he's not really set to be the starting goalie this year. But in categories leagues that count save percentage and goals against average, he's easily a top 10 goalie because he should have under a 250 goals against average and over a 910 save percentage. Now, if Freddie Anderson gets hurt, Kochetkov becomes, like I said, a top 7 goalie. If Freddie Anderson's still healthy, you can't expect him to play 62 games this season. There's just no way, bearing his injury history. They want to try and keep both of them as healthy as possible. So even if he splits time with Freddie Anderson, he's still a top 15 goalie for me. At ADP 89, I think he's fairly valued or could significantly outperform given the inevitable Freddie Anderson injury. I feel like Kochetkov is dropping quite a bit in drafts right now. I definitely want him as my goalie 1 or goalie 2. I think if you're in keeper leagues as well, and you have maybe 4 or 5 keepers, Kochetkov does have the upside to be a keeper goalie. Again, Freddie Anderson's old and he has a lot of injury history. So say, for example, Freddie Anderson gets injured and misses the whole season, potentially leaking into the season after. Kochetkov is a great keeper goalie. I love the upside from what I'm seeing from him right now. This Carolina team has no reason to not be extremely competitive again this season. They're always a Stanley Cup contender. They're always a phenomenal defensive team. And I want the goalie that should be getting at least 50% of the start share. That will do it for the 10 league winners video. This is a very long video, so hopefully you watch the entire thing. It could be extremely important to helping you win your leagues. So if you enjoyed the video, guys, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.